Well, hey there, and welcome back this morning to the Drawing Database. Professor Marc Leone, and today we're going to spend 15 minutes or so with the drawings of Portuguese and British artist Paula REGO. She was born in 1935, and she lives and works in both Portugal and Britain. And a really interesting artist, female artist, which is exciting as we move forward in our art historical drawing studies. So we see the work of Paula REGO both in prints, but primarily through her larger scale pastel works in drawing, primarily working in drawing on a larger scale. They look like paintings, but many of them certainly are in pastel drawing. She deals with issues, women's issues, of fertility, of violence, certainly of, well, just everything you could possibly imagine that humanity can struggle with. It's certainly covered in the works of REGO, and certainly within the specter of the identity of female. So let's take a look at the drawing techniques and style. Here we probably see an etching with some acid wash, spit bite, maybe acid under parts of the painting. Looks like a wash in through there. We see some line work in through here, but what we notice is a very stocky kind of female figure, etched and drawn in a more delicate stylus of line, and then we see these strange figures here and the dog in through here, and they're all pretty much covered in shadow or darker shadow with the light source, coming from this direction and then shining onto. So she really keeps the shadow shapes very dark, very flat stylistically, so it gives it a kind of haunting kind of quality within the shape, and certainly she's probably more or less drawing from her imagination here. So in looking at the content of REGO's work, we certainly see the struggle of feminine issues here, and you can probably guess as to what is transpiring in this particular image. Stylistically, we see the figure kind of full frontal spread in through here, opening up the area for this area to come forward for us, and we see the figure kind of almost staring off into kind of a numb space within her own world. And then we have lovely very aggressive techniques both within hatching, right, and then we see the cross hatching or the lattice kind of quality, or the hashtag, if you will, kind of quality, and then she builds it up even darker, and there looks to be some kinds of spit bite washes, or just washes in through here. If you're not familiar with spit bite, a coating of kind of this flowery material to block washes within the acid material, so anything that's left white was protected in not being made to etch, and everything else had a wash kind of quality to that. So we get this drawing that feels like a washed quality, but it isn't, certainly an etching. And then the very aggressive kind of technique and style. Let's go in a little bit deeper, if we can, to some of the aggressive line work, and then it could have been done from life, maybe from photographic images, but certainly a nice controlled sense of anatomy with the neck and the sternocleidomastoid. So there's an expressive kind of quality that reminds me a little bit of Goya in through here, and certainly controlled techniques in line and cross contour line and hatching. And here's what we see, what I refer to in REGO's work, the bizarre, the changes in scale, the stockiness of the figures, the almost surreal-like quality, and the intense anxiety that the works bring upon the viewer. They're not quiet images, and they're not soft and beautiful. There's lovely passages that are soft and beautiful, but they are tense, and they are slightly disturbing kinds of images between dancers perhaps performing. Are they sleeping? Are they inviting favor for someone, or reaching for love, or from help, or from a dancer? We don't quite know that, but what we can surmise here beyond content is the technique. And here we have pastel chalk material and drawing blended and smoothed down and then worked over and then blended again, so it has a very painterly kind of quality. The rendering is fantastic. So if you think about pastel in the highest forms of fine art. I guess the first person we think about is Degas. Here, her focus is less color, but more on three-dimensional form and turning the form with the changes in these sort of Portuguese or Caucasian sort of flesh tones, if you will. The wonderful 3D quality, the lovely side of the head. Here's the box, the head really turning. She gets that figure to really turn and move in space. And then the aggressive use of hatching and mark making, too, in the drawings that we see in order to give the drawing vitality. I think the skirt in its handling of folds, and it's almost like this sort of George Braque cubism, and she leaves it a little bit transparent as the material starts to fade and light comes in. So a really tour de force, I think, in figure drawing, in the ballerinas, these very stocky, unballerina-like and older females come together really nicely in this pastel drawing, multiple techniques and also color. Here we see a female spider, perhaps even a male, attacking a female, and we see the same kind of rego technical quality of an etching where we have spit bite kind of washes, and then we have hatching and then cross hatching to render out the forms of the fashion of the dress and the blouse and shirt, and certainly the spider quality in through here. Very simple but direct, sort of allegorical arrangement of a figure being attacked by a multi-legged arachnid object, or certainly animal, in through here to give a very alerting, warning, and perhaps even a violent end to this drawing. So if you know the works of Goya, this compares favorably to Goya's work, and also the medium of etching, all right, intaglio printing, and also the alarming quality of the use of darks and shadows and drawing from probably one's own imagination exclusively. Here we see a really painterly quality in the drawing. We see it could be a sketchbook drawing, maybe, I don't know, 18 by 24 inches, but really a well-controlled drawing slash almost painting with the blended quality. See how it gets a little bit blurry in these areas? She's using her fingers, or probably a cardboard stump or a piece of paper or whatever it takes to get some blur, and then she comes back on top with these wonderful sketched lines, not only in the blouse of what's almost kind of like a dancer, or maybe a housewife or a servant, or just a woman in some kind of existential pain and crisis, but she also demonstrates a wonderful use of the cross-contouring line across the form. We see this scribbly sketch, the wonderful control of foreshortening, right, and then also anatomy that we see from Rego. Just a tour de force, I think, of drawing, of expression, in use of the all of the elements and principles of drawing to show a figure perhaps in kind of existential kind of crisis, and then the background gets to be this beautiful mix of tone and value and abstraction, and there's kind of an alarming movement in and of itself that is also works quite well with the overall expression of the figure. This is an ink drawing in ink and wash, and we see the changes, the strange change in scale. Here we see, a mature, what looks like a mature couple or couples, and then we see this larger, figure turning. So there's kind of an alarming scale change. I don't know what the content will be, exactly here for her, but it does signal and gives us some direction into the mind of the artist as she's perhaps working out ideas for her larger drawings and or paintings, and working in a very small medium, or a medium that's used for generally smaller works, although you can certainly use ink and washes in quite large works too as well. But there's something disturbing and haunting within this piece. And here we go back to the theme of the ballerina, the strange, what I describe as kind of unballerina-esque, a more stocky, bolder, muscular kind of figure. When we think generally of ballerinas, we think of very slender, slight, young ladies of I don't know, 10 years old to 20, mid-20s perhaps. but we get scale changes in the feet. We get lovely cross contouring and rendering of not only tone but also mark making. We get that sensation also in the background, a very painterly kind of approach. We also see the inclusion of a grid, so this might be a study back there. We see really flatness. So there seems to me to be an influence, and I don't know this to be true since I'm not a Rego scholar, if there is one yet, but it seems to be some influence certainly from Degas, certainly with a feeling of the way the figures are pushed over in the composition and kind of compressed here on the right side. The expressions here, the change of scale, they all hint at a kind of a contemporary or postmodern, relatively, if you speak, kind of figuration where there's strange tension going on, where in Degas' time it was probably certainly mostly about beauty. So lots to pick apart here in the drawing. Lovely technique, excellent use of color, simplified kind of value scales, and this actual lovely sort of dark to anchor them. This cast shadow coming down works quite well. Here we see what's perhaps another etching of some wash, but mostly line in through here. It could be ink and wash, but it looks like perhaps an etching to me. Again, another ballerina series or dancer series, and we have the silhouette of the woman looking through. Could be almost like time with a change of scale. Maybe she's reflecting back on her life, and then we have a dog, which looks like the dog has passed away. So there's some kind of loss and death that's going on through here, and certainly the age of these two signify an older woman in a ballerina suit, which is an ironic twist of what we generally come to associate with ballerinas is youth and youth and youngness, and bodies that are certainly trained more appropriately for dancing. But we have a composition again that's very much diagonal, really pushed this way with the balancing form of the dog, the stiffer dog's legs coming in through, and then this very anchor over here of the dark silhouetted figure to change the space and also the sense of what's going on. Could be a reflective time of a past memory.